Darwin? In what, in 2 minutes? Well, he was actually, in many respects, fairly typical, fairly ordinary for his class background, which was fairly privileged, upper class, what we call country gentry. But in some respects, he was atypical in that he had a passion for natural history. And where he really was very special was in his passion for natural history and his ability to read the text of nature, you know, to follow, to read the signs in nature, and then to think about this and then to design small experiments that he could do in his own backyard. And unlike many other naturalists of his day, he never went on any other trip of any sort. He secluded himself and he became the hypochondriac, and there's many theories suggested for, you know, what was the nature of the illness. Everything from he had anxiety and he was taking in carbon dioxide too much and he was becoming anoxic, so that he was, you know, making himself dizzy and nauseous, to having Chagas disease, having been bitten on the Pampas when he was in South America. He got better as he got older and as he became more comfortable with the theory that he had formulated. I am of the school that says probably he was a hypochondriac, psychosomatic illnesses, suffering from a range of anxieties, antisocial kinds of disorders, you know, at one point. So in many respects, he's very typical. He's a country gentleman, and yet in other respects, he is atypical because he, you know, he emerges as, you know, in history, in European intellectual history, you have three great figures. You have Darwin, Marx, and Freud. And you cannot understand the 19th century without those three people. About him, when he moved out to Down House, this country estate, one of the things that he had done was to move the driveway of the house and plant big trees in front of his study so he could work in his study and not be seen from the road. And this is not a very busy road. So, you know, he went out of his way to seclude himself. And in a way, it was a very productive environment, because you see, people had to come to him. He didn't waste his time going outside and socializing and being a member of the scientific community, being a secretary of this society or doing this lecture or that. He was completely secluded, controlled his own time very carefully. And you know, when you look at how he spent his day, he was meticulous about his records. We know so much about him because he kept diaries and journals. When you look at how he spent his day, I think he worked, you know, for about 4 hours a day, 3-4 hours a day, and the rest of the time he was thinking, reading, corresponding, eating, walking, watching the natural world, talking to his family, playing with his children. And in this manner, he managed to turn out, you know, some of the outstanding works of the 19th century. And he died, actually he died in his wife's arms, very peacefully. You cannot understand evolution outside of the British Empire. No, it would not look the same. It would not look the same. Not look the same at all, no. No. How could Darwin, Hooker, J.D. Hooker, Lyell, many of the figures in 19th century evolutionary theory, the discussion about the mechanism, descent with modification by means of natural selection, they had all gone on voyages of exploration, all of them. They had all spent time abroad traveling, either ship's doctors or naturalists or companions or something like that. No, this is, I wouldn't call it uniquely British. I don't want to fall into that trap of saying it's uniquely, but I don't think you can understand it outside of Britain, no. And you know, it's fascinating to draw the parallels. This is sheer speculation, but to draw the parallels between 19th century evolutionism in Britain, 20th century evolutionism in America.